75.1%, 75.1% of Americans do not volunteer a single hour in a given year. And this is a number from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and when we look at this number and try to understand it, the number of people who don't volunteer is actually increasing every year, just subtly, over the last 4 years. And when we look at the people who do volunteer, that 24.9% of people who do volunteer, even that part of the pie chart involves certain things that you may not intuitively think of when you think of volunteerism. Because you probably think about humanitarian efforts, you might think of community service, but actually this pie chart represents some other things when it comes to volunteerism. It can include volunteering for business or trade organizations, hobbies, sports, religious worship. So really that portion of what you might think of as community volunteerism can be actually quite small. And so in 2014, I wanted to better understand the American volunteer experience. And so I made a promise. Almost as a New Year's resolution, I made a commitment. I promised that I would volunteer at 52 different nonprofits, one each week for 52 weeks in a row. Now, I just volunteered between 2 to 8 hours at a different nonprofit each week, and I'm not trying to prop myself up to sound like a good person because I spent most of my life not helping anyone, but what this did do was give me a perspective to understand different causes, whether it's homelessness, a rape crisis center, children with disabilities. It gave me a view of what volunteerism is. And I learned a lot of things, and I could tell you different stories about it, but the primary takeaway that I got from this year-long experience was that volunteering is actually kind of boring. Volunteering is actually kind of disorganized, and volunteering can be quite even lonely. And that's incredibly unfortunate, and we need to improve the way volunteer experiences are, and not because we're competing against other nonprofits. As nonprofit leaders, it's not about making another experience that's better than somebody else's as far as a volunteer program, because we're not competing with each other, right? We are actually competing with people's time. When you volunteer, you're giving up your free time. You could be doing anything with that free time. What we're really competing with is Netflix and binge watching Stranger Things, right? What we're really competing with is the warmth of the sun, right? And going outside. What we're competing with is going to the Spooky Pooch Parade, right? In Lakewood, Ohio, right? I mean, that is an English bulldog dressed up as the big bad wolf, dressed up as grandma in Little Red Riding Hood, okay? That is something you need to see, okay? But the point is that we're just not competing with other nonprofit volunteer experiences. We're competing with people's time. You get to choose what you do in this life. And so the fact of the matter is that altruism is not enough. I wish it was. I wish we were all born with this greatness inside of us to serve others. But if that were true, then that number wouldn't be so high, 75.1%. While that is true, it is also true that there's an upside, because volunteerism doesn't have to be so boring. We can make it better. We can change this experience to increase volunteer rates. We can increase retention. And through the experience of volunteering at those 52 places, I came up with some perspectives that I thought might be helpful for other nonprofit leaders. Some tips, ideas. And the first one is that we need to think about volunteerism through the lens of a retail mentality. Okay, what does that mean? Let's say you go to a restaurant with some strange girl you met on Tinder, okay? And you go to a restaurant and you sit down, and if you don't get a waiter or waitress to come to your table within like 60 seconds or a couple minutes, you're sitting there kind of tapping your foot, right? Like, when is this person gonna come? Why is that? It's because we have a consumer expectation of what service, what experience is supposed to be. And when you go volunteer, you don't see this. I'm not sure where to park. I don't know what door to walk in. And wait, what am I supposed to do here? And who do I ask if I have any questions? We don't have that retail mentality. You see, what would be a small thing, for example, you could do to make a volunteer experience better? Here's an example. Most volunteer experiences, there's going to be a little table of like little treats and snacks and water or whatever, right? And because of bigger projects, you could be in a different room though, packing and sorting, or maybe even outside painting a bench, whatever it might be. What if somebody just came to you with like a little platter, the same food, same water, and said, here you go, take one. That's a small thing, it really is. But if you can find 5 or 7 ways to adapt and take this retail mentality and bring it into volunteerism, maybe people are more likely to do it. Maybe people will come back. One of the ways that I try to put myself in the position of this thought as a nonprofit leader myself is I imagine myself as an executive vice president at a 5-star luxury hotel. And I say, okay, if I was that person, what would I do to make this volunteer experience better? It's called reverse brainstorming. You take yourself and put yourself in an extreme and you work back to reality. I think if we can take a retail mentality, we can make an experience that 75.1% want to be a part of. The number 2 thing that we could maybe do is to make volunteering more social. Many people who have volunteered, they realize that, yeah, you're surrounded by people, right? But you don't actually really talk to them. It's actually pretty transactional. Again, you're packing and sorting or what have you, and you don't really get to talk to many people because you just came there with a significant other or a friend, and you tend to stick to that pack and talk there. But we've got to inject artificial ways to interact with you, artificially inject social moments. And I don't care if it's something small like an icebreaker. I mean, that could be on the low scale. That's fine. I don't want to sit next to a stranger. I have no idea who this person is for 4 hours. That happens a lot. So if we can make volunteerism more social, if we can create teams or contests, gamification, any sort of way to get people to interact, and maybe they create bonds, maybe they want to come back, and it enhances the experience. Volunteering today in America is far too lonely. Another thing that we can do to make the volunteer experience better is to teach me like a TED Talk. What do I mean by that? So often we go to nonprofit organizations and there's a little bit of an orientation, okay? And this is a humanitarian issue, right? Like homelessness or whatever it might be. And so there's a person who's a volunteer program manager or an executive director. They're gonna walk you through a little bit about what the cause is, right? But what ends up happening is that we talk about the number of locations, the number of chapters, number of cans of food, right? We talk about things that, quite frankly, most people don't care about. What they want to know, what they want to understand is the actual issue in a deeper way. Tell me about cause and effect. Is correlation causation? Put me through a story. Tell me a story. Teach me like a TED Talk. Make it an experience where I come out of this more enlightened, where I can't wait to share what I've learned with people on social media. And maybe that attracts more people. The volunteer experience has a lot of phases and pieces and parts to it. There are different ways that we can make it better. But we've got to invest in making an experience and not just invest in making impact. And that's unfortunate. What I'm saying is unfortunate. Because this is almost mathematically what I'm saying. I'm saying that if you volunteer, and let's say in a volunteer experience you make 100 units of good, right? You make 100 units of good as the way volunteering stands today. I'm saying that we need to take 20 units and sacrifice them. That we take the 20 units that would have been spent doing more good to actually create a better experience. And that is sad. It is sad because that's 20% less people that are being helped. But the fact is that if you can retain that person to come back one more time, you won't have 100 units, you won't have 80, you'll have 160 because that's what retention can help us do. That's what attracting other people to a volunteer experience can do. The truth of the matter is that I actually do not care if volunteering is fun or entertaining. In my heart of hearts, I really don't care about that. Do you know what I care about? I care about what I learned volunteering at those 52 places. Did you know that 1 in 68 children are going to be born with autism in America? Do you know that the suicide rates for children between the ages of 10 and 14 have tripled from 1999 to 2014? More people die of heroin overdose in the county that I live in than car accidents and guns combined. The world is in need, and so you are needed. Perhaps the most dangerous idea in this world is that the thought that the actions of one person don't matter. That the volunteerism of one person, that doesn't matter. Because when we all believe that, then we don't do anything. Thank you.